in collaboration with Tier 1 Comics, an all-new creative team brings the epic fantasy adventure of Rokan to life, combining high fantasy and heavy metal artistic styles and sensibilities with the action-packed, fun world of superhero comic books. Rokan is part fantasy, part superhero, and all metal.
Okay, I think I let that one play through to the end. I know the first one I cut early. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. It's nice to be here.
Cool. Let's see. We got people in the chat already. So Mo Biggs is here, and being critical, you have to understand Mo Biggs is our resident antagonist. He's going to try and rip you apart. Should I roast this guy? Ben, are you ready to be roasted by a total stranger who knows nothing about you?
And that's my life. I'm on the internet.
Okay, here we go.
Yes.
So Mo hit it. Let's see. Tank is here. Does Mo have a wrench? Mo has a wrench. Good. We'll see who else shows up. If people don't behave, then everybody gets a wrench. I'm here. There's that. Tank and Comics Mate is here. Good to see you guys. So, all right, Ben, you're the writer for this book that we just looked at. This what's it called? I keep saying it incorrectly. So Rokan.
Yeah, Rokan. Yeah, I'm the writer. I don't know what to say. I started off writing this as a novel, 2019, and it turns out writing a novel takes a lot of time and editing, because I had thought of potentially making it a comic book in the future, but I wanted to release the novel beforehand. Those plans changed in part because writing a novel is more time consuming than I anticipated, especially since I'm really making sure to write it well and not rushing it. But also because I ended up meeting a lot of people through Instagram, through Comicsgate and indie comics circles, and I ended up meeting the right people that I needed to make the comic book, and that version, that iteration of the story is a lot further along than the novel.
So do you feel the story that you want to tell is more clear one way or the other, or is it an even split? You lose a little but gain a little, and it's worth both versions.
That's the way I feel right now, but something tells me the comic book is going to end up being bigger and more popular, and not that I'm going to focus on the version that's more popular just for that reason necessarily, but since I've been collaborating with my artist and the rest of our team to create this book, I've just been enjoying the process a lot more, and I've been reading a lot more comic books. I've always been an avid comic book reader, but now more than ever. And so I'm enjoying that process a lot more. And so what I think I'll do is complete the original novel that I have yet to edit and finish. And that novel is going to be a masterpiece. I'm going to take my time with that novel and get it really right. But what I'm going to do is not write a second novel. But what I am going to do is continue the story just as a comic book forever. So to put that more succinctly, the first volume, the first arc, if you will be a novel and a comic book, but there won't be a second novel. But I do want the story to continue as an ongoing comic book series.
Nice, if you can, of course, because we never know what the future holds anymore. Are you? Now you said you're artist. You met him through the Instagram, Facebook circles, correct?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah,
Who
my
is?
artist is he's called Max Hedgeshroom. That's his pen name, and I met him because I just started looking on Instagram for different hashtags related with the kind of art that I was looking for, and specifically with someone that was an independent comic book artist. I didn't
Mhm.
really expect to find the right match, but I did almost immediately. It was like a Cinderella thing. I don't know if you believe in God. I do. I'm a Christian.
Mhm.
Oh no, I think you mentioned before that you were too. So I mean, it sounds silly to say, but there's really no other way to explain it in my mind than providence, because the what I want mean to say is I would not be making this book as a comic book had I not found precisely 100% the correct collaborative team to work with, because
Nice.
I had some concept art shown to me by a couple of other artists, and for a little while I was tempted to just go with them, because this being my first project, a little voice in my head said I was lucky to get anyone, but uh, I listened to the voice of wisdom, which said no, if don't do it unless you do it right, and that's why I have the artist that I have.
Okay, cool. And as far as being a Christian goes, I really don't mind hearing people look back at things where they say, you know what, that had to be God working in whatever way. I know it sounds a little bit superstitious, but crediting God with what appears to be good things is, really not a problem. Where I end up drawing the line now because of my lengthy experience in bad things is when people start to use that, I feel God telling me on my heart right now to tell you, and I'm just like, nope, I'm out. That's where I'm done. You're like, I don't go for that kind of thing at all. But when people look backwards and they say, oh, I wonder if that little push of inspiration was God, and if it was, good for him. I got no problem with that sort of thing. It's looking backwards. So I hear
Yeah,
that with you right now.
that's a good rule of thumb. That's a
Hmm.
good rule of thumb, because a lot of people convince themselves that whatever they want is what God wants also, to just
Hmm.
justify what they're doing, and I think a lot of people make a mistake when they do that. But we know that everything good in our past was from God, so I think that's a good way. I think that's a good rule to follow. Thank
Yeah.
Attribute to God the good things that happen, but don't assume you know what God wants for your future.
Now, or is going to tell you is really, I think, what you're trying to say. Not wants, but would tell you. Moses wasn't much of a public speaker either. Neither am I. I am trying so hard not to stumble. By the way, for this show, there may be a bit of a delay because of the long distance and multi-country thing involved right now. Do you? So if we step on each other a bit, I want people listening or replaying this later to understand. Do you want to get into a little bit of what you're doing right now as far as your work or your background? I'd like to get into your education some. So where are you, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Everything's fine. Just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very strange biography that I have. Let's see. I am in Colombia at the moment.
Hmm.
I was actually born here, but I spent most of my life in the United States. Both my parents were and are missionaries in Colombia. Most of my family lives in the United States. I spend most of my time in the United States. I'm in Colombia at the moment just because when I quit my job to focus on my writing, it made more sense to live in Colombia, because the cost of living here is low. I work online. I get paid in dollars. The amount of dollars I make would not be enough for me to live adequately in the United States, but it absolutely is in Colombia because of the exchange rate.
Hmm. We're about to see a lot of that change with everything that's been going on recently with payouts and bailouts and so-called stimulus. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're doing everything that they did in the 60s that caused the hyperinflation of the 70s. So oh boy.
Oh man. Yeah. So I better. Yeah. I don't
Hey,
know. I probably can't. This model probably isn't going to work for long, which is
no.
why I need this
I
campaign to be a
I
success.
I think like no model is going to work for long, but so you're teaching English down there in Colombia online.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you get students?
So I had the idea to do this before the pandemic started. So when I moved here in 2019, it was easy. There are a lot of companies, most of them in Asia, that want online English teachers
Hmm.
for kids, primarily Chinese and Korean kids, and
Okay.
also just from my family's connections and my own time being in Colombia not too long ago. I know a lot of people who can refer me people that want private classes for, it's mostly like one-on-one business executives that want to improve their fluency and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
ironically, I was doing the online thing before the pandemic, but now because of the pandemic, there's a lot more competition, so it's harder to get students.
now you don't need to name your organization, but to get students, are you working with an organization that advertises you and you're registered with them, or how does that work?
For the most part, not. When it comes to Asian students, I obviously, well, I guess I shouldn't say obviously because you don't know about this, but when it comes to Asian students, I work through a company. Um, but for my private students, we just work. I just make the contact through mutual contacts, and if they like the way I teach and I can tolerate them, then we make a deal.
Okay, cool. So, what's your background educationally then? As far as you're teaching English now, I've almost been recruited to teach English into the Far East because they just take they're like, you're a native speaker, we'll take anybody, which
Yeah.
makes me fear for the Asians learning English. It's like I've listened to my fellow Americans and they don't speak English. So, um, well, what's your educational background? You've finished high school. Actually, how did you go to high school?
I was in the United States for high school and college. I have a degree in foreign language education, and I have a master's degree in literature. So I'm very qualified to teach. But you're right. There are a lot of places. I call them Mickey Mouse institutes. That
Hmm.
as long as you're a native speaker of English, they'll hire you. But
Mm.
I try to avoid those and go for the ones that require at least a CELTA or TOEFL certification. But in most cases, the fact that I have a college degree is an advantage.
Cool. Mo Biggs, of course. Now, remember, this is our roaster. If you don't know the name, just because you're new, yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm a
anyway,
lot older than I sound. You can't see me right now. I look even younger. I look about 12. I sound about 20, and I'm actually 33, which is a very strange thing. I have Benjamin Button's disease.
ah, yeah, and we can't see you because you're on the other side of the planet from the United States, and it's night for you right now. So I'm joking. Anyway, so you got your I'm sorry, did you say literature degree? I want to make sure I got that right.
That's right. I have a master's in Latin American literature.
Nice. So when it comes to storytelling, you you have the experience necessary to put together a story and tell it cohesively and all that, correct?
I'd say so. I'm not sure to what extent my degree makes me a better writer. Actually, it doesn't seem to me that that's the case. But I mean, my girlfriend and my parents seem to think that I'm wrong about that. But in any event, I know a lot about how to write. I have a lot of experience writing. And this is my first attempt at writing fiction, though. I've in the past I've been employed at websites to write articles and OPs,
Hmm.
um, and that's fine and good, but it gets boring after a while. So I'm much more interested in what I'm doing now. I think that what makes me a good writer is just the fact that I've read so much and I'm really familiar with how stories work and how character development works just from reading. So yeah, I have a master's degree in literature. I suspect that that was a waste of time and money, and that I'm as good at writing as I am just from how much reading I've done and writing. But who knows?
So I remember being around your age or a little bit younger, when I kind of got sick of going to the movies because it was always the same roller coaster with like the little peak, the big peak, and then it just ends real quick after the battle, and you never really know how people recovered from the battle. So that was my first discovery by observation of like the hero's journey or anything like that. But when you were getting your lit degree, did they talk about that kind of thing?
Well, what was it Mark Twain that said not to let your schooling interfere with your education? A lot of the formal education that I had in graduate school was really geared towards modern ideologies that I kind of had to resist, especially being in South America. The tendency there is towards communist thinking. So Mo's asking me about magic realism. You know what's interesting? I wrote my thesis about magic realism, but this work I don't think you could characterize as magic realism.
What is that?
So magic realism is a genre or a movement from South America that combines realistic and very serious tones and settings, but interspersed with little bits of supernatural phenomena that, rather than being explained, is used symbolically to express certain ideas. Usually, the idea behind a novel, a magic realism novel, is to give an impression of a place or a historic movement, and usually the magic aspect of it is meant to highlight the significance of that. So, I mean, I could go on about that forever, but what we want to talk about mostly is Rokan. So to answer your question, Mo, no.
Okay, so Rokan is not going to be engaging
is not a
in
magic realism.
Yeah, although the turtle flying between the sun and
There's
planets
magic.
here.
There's magic. Yeah,
So
there's absolutely magic, but it's not magic realism per se.
okay, but let's see what we got for Rokan. May I read the description?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so it's a 24-page full-color comic book, hand-painted. Oh boy, there's a question right there. In the style of Simon Bisley and Greg Staples. It will be the first issue of an ongoing bi-monthly series, so every 2 months you want to put one out. Issue 1 tells, some people use bi-monthly to say twice a month. That's not what it means. Issue 1 tells the first chapter in the origin of the Rokan superhero. Okay, so he's a superhero. We got that. 24 pages, full color. All right. Painted style. Are these digital painted styles, or is he doing like traditional anything?
No, he does the painting all by hand. I don't really understand the process. It's magic. I think he does pencils by hand, then inks digitally, then paint by hand, and then like edits it afterwards digitally again, which doesn't even make sense to me. But I mean, I've seen pictures of the process, so I don't exactly know what his method is, but I do know that he hand paints the colors, and it's really out of this world. He's going to be both of us are going to be on a little bit later with Preston Acevedo, and he'll be able to, at that time, Max will explain the art. I think Preston's more interested in the art than in the story, to be honest, which is fine because they're both phenomenal artists.
Yeah, actually, I was about to say, if you want to send the link to Max, you're free to do that. But if that crowds out our ability to talk about story, well, I mean, he'll have his chance later with Preston. So, but Preston's actually, I really like some of Preston's videos where he's just talking over a fast forward of him doing a piece, because he'll start explaining things, and I've got to get him, just trick him, I guess, into talking about the chemical mixture he uses to extend his acrylics, because that's really cool. So they behave like oils better, so they don't dry so fast without adding the uncolored acrylic base to them. That'd be really neat. But that's more art stuff, and that's Preston. I'm very impressed with Preston in a lot of ways. So
Yeah, me
let's
too.
see.
I'll try to get Max and Preston to talk about that later on.
Cool.
I'll trick them.
I saw a video of his from a couple months ago last night, and he was talking about how to extend your India ink. But anyway, we've got Ian Franklin saying, "Yo, all right, good. Those aren't in alphabetical order, Ian. I just want you to know. Get that. You might care about that. Ian's a little OCD. So anyway, here's Mo Biggs. I didn't see this was from Mo Biggs initially, and I almost reacted to it, that the bi-monthly goes both ways. And right there, you have a thought between, I was going to say, no, that's only new because people screwed it up. Bi-monthly traditionally always meant twice a month. And then I saw that's why it's bi. Realized this is Mo Biggs. Yeah, got me, dude. Oh,
that's a good joke. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, hello, Good Stuff Comics Gator, just because I haven't said hello yet. And just to get everybody on the screen, Tank Ferret. Good day. There we are. Hail Mo. All right. So you started writing this as a novel. Oh, and Hail Dean, of course. Back in 2019, you said you started writing this as a novel. It's always the tough question that's lame with authors is, where do you get your ideas in general from? So I'm wondering, where did you get my face? Here we go. My face probably isn't alphabetical order either, but I'm not complaining. You're not complaining. All right, moving on. When this idea started for you, what was the germination of it?
I actually have an answer to that question. I've noticed a lot of writers don't. In this case, there's to a certain degree an autobiographical component to the protagonist. Not that I'm a wizard with a magic sword, but I grew up. I suffered from a rare chronic fatigue illness for most of my life. So as a kid, I wasn't very athletic, and I come from a very academic, scholarly, and religious family. So I always had the notion when I was young that sports and those kinds of things weren't for me.
Okay.
But as I got older and as I got healthier, I became very interested in sports, particularly in martial arts. So I started doing martial arts many years ago, and I love martial arts, especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I've always had imposter syndrome because you know what I mean? Like, because I was a sickly little kid, the fact that I'm more or less athletic now and I can handle myself at this time in my life, but I still kind of feel like an imposter when I'm in those circles, when I hang out with those people, and when I do those activities. So what happens in the story of Rokan is that it's a society kind of like the Athens-Sparta dynamic of the philosophers on the one hand and the warrior athletes on the other hand, except instead of rivals, those two factions or those two castes are collaborative. And their religion, it's a binary religion with a dyad of two gods, but they're not rival gods, they're collaborative gods. And so basically every man in that society, in this that's a part of this country, is either an older brother or a younger brother, meaning that they follow in the ways of the older brother god or in the ways of the younger brother god. And Rokan wants to do both, and obviously that's prohibited. So he's a defector from the army. He's a heretic, and the story, the conflict and the inciting incident for him is being rejected by that society, but also his internal conflict because he doesn't want to reject what he's been taught and what he knows, and he doesn't hate his countrymen, but he just kind of has an ideological disagreement with them. So that kind of spurs most of the action.
Right. Okay, so wow, you can't be Catholic and Protestant at the same time.
Yeah, but can you be a philosopher and a warrior at the same time?
You know, that really would be the best. It's when I was in high school, if you don't mind me saying so. I mean, I'm glad you're bringing this topic up because it's really important. When I was in high school, we had a mechanical drawing or drafting or something like that. It's basically mechanics, but we did a lot of drawing class for some of the kids who had taken an extra class pre like a 0 hour in their previous years, and so now they had free time in their senior year. So I took that. I tried to use laminar flow to design a surfboard or whatever. Anyway, garbage. So one of the things that came up, I'm sorry, the instructor for the class was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, I believe, and he took all these hormone-filled young guys. I went to an all-boys high school, a Jesuit one, and I'm not Catholic now, but still a Jesuit one. And he taught us that just wanting to rush into battle was stupid. That real good, like the real soldiers who were good soldiers, didn't want to rush into battle because they knew the real cost in life and loss, even for your enemy, that those are still humans over there, despite the fact that you have to dehumanize them in your head to some degree and whatnot. And that's a tough thing to get through to some kids. So this idea of do you want the philosopher or the warrior that you brought up is a really important question, I think, for our society that doesn't think very well nowadays, especially in the States.
I think if this book had existed back then, especially the novel version, I think your professor would have found it very useful in teaching that class.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So, I've got this one on the screen right now so that you can tell us who the different characters are. You've mentioned Rokan already, and which is he the one with the sword?
Well, there's two guys with swords there. So Rokan's the one in the foreground with the curvy bladed sword and
Okay.
the very Max Headroom stylized wizard hat. That's Rokan, and so I really like the design that Max and I have finally settled on, because the idea here is that he's combining the two um, archetypes. So half of his body is concealed in a cloak, and the way that we're making this work is, everyone's read The Shadow, Batman, Spawn. They've seen those characters. Sometimes the cloak is just a cape behind them. Sometimes it's covering them. So Max is really articulate at using those elements to show the tone and the body language that Rokan is trying to convey, depending on the circumstance. And then the other half of his body, he's wearing armor and has weaponry and accoutrements associated with hoplites or centurions, or some kind of informed by Greco-Roman style of being a warrior of some sort. So
Mm-hmm.
one half of his body is a wizard, and the other half of his body is a knight or a warrior of some kind. So yeah. So that's the reason for the character design. You said you wanted me to talk about the other characters also.
Yeah,
So
if you're not going to spoil anything by accident, that'd be that's cool.
I think I
Please
can
do.
be careful. I think I can be careful not to. So so the portrait of the young man's face, that's Rokan. Underneath the mask, underneath the hat, that's what he looks like.
Right here.
And yes, sir. And then the older gentleman, on the other side, that's Rokan's father, who's a very important part, especially of the first arc.
Mm-hmm.
The other two characters are colleagues of Rokan's. At times they'll be allies, at times they'll be rivals. One of them is called Calisorn, and he's that's the big muscular gentleman there with the ant mask and helmet with the very prominent crest, and he's just an all and out consummate warrior, obsessed with his skill, obsessed with his honor and his reputation, and being the best skilled fighter that he could possibly be. And the other one with magic coming out of his hand and the green hood, that's Beldak, and he's kind of like a trickster magician character.
So essentially, Rokan has not, I don't want to say sidekicks, but friends that represent each side of his, of what he's trying to unify within himself.
That's exactly the case, yes.
Okay. Wait, what is Comics Mate being mad about now?
Something's
oh, I see it now. Yeah. Dean, were you aware that this guy is allegedly older than you claim to be? Right. Okay. Now you know how. By the way, when I'm streaming like this, guys, I just want you to know I get nervous to the point where it is really hard for me to read. So now you know how the rest of us feel when you claim to be 30. Okay, got it. Man, these guys. I love
you're
them.
doing fine.
So you get Good Stuff's Comic Gator says he's 42. All right, so when you sat down to write this, you mentioned archetype, and I know that those don't have to be Jungian archetypes necessarily, but where you can make up your own, and it sounds a little bit like you've mixed some of those, a little bit of classic, a little bit of your own. What were you pulling on?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely informed by Jungian archetypes. I'm a big fan and believer in most of Carl Jung's ideas. With respect to the archetypes, I think Joseph Campbell really laid out how those work and how they relate to literature the best. I read along the time when I first started writing this story, I was reading The Hero of a Thousand Faces. So those ideas in that book really kind of opened my eyes to what a hero is and what a heroic story is, and so definitely has a lot to do with Jungian archetypes. What I learned from Campbell is that the way the hero's journey works implies a return and a transformation, but a transformation, I think he calls it a boon. Meaning something that can be shared with others. So I don't want to spoil anything, but in very macro terms, what Rokan does is transform the mentality that was given to him in his youth. He goes through a very painful process of making enemies, being enemies with people that he wouldn't want to be considered his enemy, that he would prefer to be friends with, fighting, redeeming himself, and then ultimately arriving at some higher truth, which is, generally speaking, that you have to combine these two ideas. You have to combine these two energies within yourself, and then the boon would be anyone that comes along with him. And so, yeah.
But I'm kind of hearing a little bit of two different types of character arcs. One arc, by the way, I'm a fan of Professor Geek, but I'm really new to a lot of this stuff. I remember Joseph Campbell a bit from when I was a kid. We'll talk a little bit more about him in a minute. So Hex Allen, yes. Our guest here was Ben was discussing Joseph Campbell a little bit and the influence he had. Lee Johnson. Hi, Lee. Hey, thanks for joining us. So one of the things I've picked up on that I need to use in my own attempts at writing is character arcs. And then there's also the settings I remember from grade school where it's, man versus society, man versus nature, man versus self. And what I'm hearing from the description of your story. Well, first, do you use these guidelines? Because that's really what they are, is they're guidelines. They don't, you can start with something that's your own and it'll accidentally fit the cookie cutter rather than you trying to force it in the cookie cutter. But do you ever deliberately go back to these guidelines and just when you see, I don't know, how do you end up using them is really the better question I should ask. How?
So writing this novel has been a tightrope walk where, on the one hand, I'm very aware of the power of these myths and how they happen and how they usually happen accidentally. So it can't be accidentally for me because I'm too cognizant of it. But on the other hand, I'm very deliberately avoiding cliches. Because when I first started outlining the long the big story, the big picture story, I had this idea about Rokan being the chosen one, and he would get this magic sword, and it would turn out that the magic sword was from this country that he was actually born in, and it was his birthright. And then after a while, I realized that story's been done 1,000 times. That would just
Right.
be me repeating, King Arthur and Excalibur, or Luke Skywalker getting his, Anakin's lightsaber from before Anakin became Darth Vader. So I realized, well, I don't need to tell that story. That story already exists. So I came up with a
Right.
different story. So I'm really excited because at every step of the way, I'm seeing the cliche that would be very easy to fall into, and purposefully avoiding it. But at
Okay.
the same time, there obviously is man versus society here, and there obviously is man versus self here.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing. He's rebelling against both sides of society with each other, but then reconciling them in himself is the man versus self. And it's just like
Exactly.
that's just an interesting combination rather than just using one. So nice, good job. I mean, I haven't seen how it
Thanks.
really turns out yet, but good job at the intent. So
It's a good idea in theory, Ben. Yeah.
theory, yeah. Are you ever finding the hero story to be overused? You just said you wanted to avoid certain cliches.
The thing is that the hero's journey is impossible to avoid. It's the skeleton of any story. Unless you're really deliberately going against every convention in like a postmodern way, but then you're going to get something chaotic that's incoherent. So
Right.
there's no avoiding the hero's journey. It's just a matter of how colorful and unusual and distinct you can make the outside, because the skeleton's always going to be a hero's journey, but you can avoid cliches, and you can avoid the same characters and the same events that you've seen in other stories. So what I mean by that is, yes, my hero has a call to action, refusal of the call, belly of the beast, return with the boon. Yes, all of those things occur. However, this is not Luke Skywalker. This is not King Arthur. This is not any character that you've seen before, and neither are his relations and personal conflicts with any of the other characters going to resemble anything you've read
Mm.
anywhere else.
Okay, cool. So it should feel a little fresher than other things we're used to. That's good. Now, I don't mean to poke holes at you or anything like that.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to sit down and do a video where I don't know if you know who these people are. Nick Rekieta was interviewing Brett R. Smith and Chuck Dixon together, and Dixon went off for about 5 minutes on the hero's journey being overused. And so I wanted to sit down and kind of give my 2 cents with that, to just review that part of their interview and agree with him on certain points that he makes, and just say, well, the hero's journey really does apply in a certain scale, but if you get into too small of a microcosm, then Dixon is correct in saying it doesn't work. Only he didn't phrase it that way. He just says the hero's journey isn't realistic, and forgive me if I'm misparaphrasing him, but it isn't realistic because you don't go through the refusal of the call to adventure just to go to the store and get a stick of butter. It doesn't work that way. So he sees it as overused in certain ways that I won't try to reiterate now, because I I don't remember them well enough. It'd be better if we had his video here, but this isn't about him. So it was a really thought provoker. It was a good thought provoker there, where he has a good point to make in its place, and not just everywhere. And I find the hero's journey is unavoidable because, well, for me, it goes back to Jordan Peterson and his map. Everyone thinks 12 Rules for Life. No, I've listened to some of his lectures from his prior book, and those are hard to sit through because they're basically, maps of meaning. They're basically university classes. So when you say it's hard to avoid, what I hear in my own thoughts, what I was thinking about along those lines. See, I am nervous, Mo. What I hear, what's been rattling around in my head about that is a lot of these things that are considered the classic way, it's not prescribed, it's observed, and that these are the stories that survived. Okay.
I agree. I don't think most stories are written with the intention of repeating a hero's journey. I mean, obviously Star Wars was, it's formulaic in that way. Harry Potter looks to have been done deliberately in that way also. But I agree. In most cases, it's not following a prescription. It's not prescriptive. It's descriptive, right? Meaning that these stories just happen this way because that's how stories work. And then we've developed this formula by observing stories. I mean, that's clear. I mean, I think that's Joseph Campbell's thesis, in The Hero of a Thousand Faces, because the same phenomena is observed unilaterally in every culture, in every corner of the planet. But that doesn't mean that all these stories are the same, and that if you know one, you know them all, because the characters are different, the circumstances are different, and the motivations are different. So what I've done is very deliberately created characters, conflicts, and a setting that I feel doesn't resemble anything I've ever read, and I've read a lot. And to and just to further that point, I think most heroes that are clearly that you can clearly delineate as hero's journey heroes usually go through a I'm nobody phase into an I'm the greatest phase, like the unlikely hero. That is such a cliche that I've had it up to my teeth with it. So I did the opposite. Rokan is very highly qualified, very talented, and very formidable from day one. The thing is, so Rokan isn't like, oh, really? Am I going to be the chosen one? And then 45 minutes later, he's the chosen one. I'm sick of that story. I don't know about you, but I'm bored with it. So what I did with Rokan, rather, was to make him morally questionable at the beginning, and to go through more of a rather than to just grow up and realize, hey, I'm going to destroy the Death Star because I'm just supposed to. No, rather, Rokan has always been extraordinarily talented and powerful, but he goes through a transformation of becoming more virtuous.
Okay, good. Now, I hope this answers Mo Biggs's possibly serious question here about if you can give us an honest introspective assessment, does the writing stack up favorably against the art? Well, it sounds like it's going to get there, at least in intent and design and effort. So there's that. Now you said I'm sorry. What's that?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
That was my microphone. Sorry.
You said you've had it up to your teeth with a certain portion that I believe falls under the refusal of the call. That's what Dixon was saying before we get to something about Jordan Peterson. But Dixon was saying that the refusal of the call has really turned into, over and over again for these stories, is a massively self-doubting, just absolutely wimpy like there's just it's almost like the anime protagonist who is always completely whiny and never reforms. Sort of Eren in Attack on Titan. If you've seen it, the whole story
Yeah.
really revolves on. I can't stand Eren or Mikasa anymore. For me, it's everybody else. So, with just they stay as that he's reluctant to grow up, and it's just killer. But anyway, that bothers me. So anyway, Dixon was saying that. The hero with the refusal to the call now is just this writhing pile, in my wording, not his, writhing pile of self-doubt and denial, and I can't be good enough, and oh poor me, and instead of any curiosity at all about, well, can I do this? Am I willing to be tested? Like that song by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Am I willing to go figure out am I capable? And then the wizard comes in and says, I'll give you a hint, you are capable, you just don't know it yet. Instead they have to drag the hero tooth and by his teeth to get out there and do it. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you, and it's really annoying because you're given a character that's not sympathetic in any way, doesn't, at least it doesn't provoke in me any loyalty or admiration. On the contrary, I dislike the character because he's such a loser. And then, with no justification within the context or the setting, he just transforms into the greatest badass that's able to do everything necessary at basically the snap of a finger. And I don't like that. It's boring. I think it's lazy writing, to be honest.
Yeah. I can see what you mean by lazy writing. And you are talking about Eren, right?
I'm talking about Eren. I'm talking about Anakin Skywalker. I'm talking about Harry Potter. I mean, not to throw shade, because actually, Harry Potter is quite well done books. But it happens over and over and over. I think everyone here, everyone watching, could name you 5 such examples off the top of their head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, how this? I understand that the hero's. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is where I'm going with this. The hero's journey isn't a dead set recipe. I remember when I first started looking into it, that I think it was on Wikipedia. I found a chart, and there are other scholars who have put it together besides Campbell, and their formulas down the chart look a little bit. By the way, Fenrir Fire is saying you're a wizard, Benny. I believe that's to you.
Yeah, I'm a wizard.
And so that it's a guideline where you don't have to have all of the elements, do you?
Well, I think you can get away with adding or subtracting certain elements. I think every hero is going to have the call and the return, but there are stories where the call is never refused. For example, because
that's the big one.
Yeah. Yeah, because according to Joseph Campbell, there's meant to be a refusal of the call. I don't have in mind all the steps right now, but yeah, the meeting with the goddess or something like that, the belly of the whale. So all of those moments are optional in a simplistic way. You could say it that way, but obviously there's going to be a return. Because there's every story is going to have a clear ending, a clear resolution where you can see that things are different now than how they were. So yeah, there are many different heroes' journeys, in as much as you can omit or repeat certain steps, but they all have the same first step and last step, which is the call and the return.
Yeah, not to be overly didactic about it, but the I think the only time that the return doesn't happen is if you have a redemption story that involves the protagonist's death, and it's like, well, yeah, duh. So,
no, but I'd argue that that's the ultimate return, because I'll let you, if we look behind the curtain, my interpretation of literature is Christocentric, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm Orthodox Christian. So as far as I'm concerned, Jesus Christ is the ultimate archetypal hero, and
Mhm.
the gospel, especially the Gospel of John, but any of the four Gospels, is the ultimate and perfect hero's journey from which all the others are derivations. That's the way I see it. So
And
yeah,
mhm.
if the hero sacrificing himself, that's par for the course for the hero's journey, as far as I'm concerned. And the fact that he's dead at the end, that's fine, because
and yeah, and unless we deify our characters, then then his death is the return, as it were. Whereas with
yes,
Christ, it's his ascension that was the return, and his crucifixion and days in the grave or the belly of the beast, maybe.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So you can sort of overlay the hero's journey. You can sort of map it over different points of the
Mhm.
same story. So if you take the life of Christ, there's at least three hero's journeys within the overall story of his life, kind of like in a fractal shape. Because, like you said, you could see the resurrection as the return, you could see the crucifixion as the return, or later on you could see the ascension as the return. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like three, like three spires within the same circle.
Yeah. And I don't ever see Christ refusing the call.
No,
No, I
certainly
don't
not.
can't think of it. Okay, so that's because humans are sinners and we're fallen. Now, by the way, I did want to mention. I wanted to see if you had any input regarding maps of meaning and what's his name,
Jordan
Jordan
Peterson.
Peterson. Yeah. So one of the things I picked up on in the few lectures of his from the Maps of Meaning were, and these were just his class lectures that eventually turned into the book.
Yeah.
So you could, if people want to go on YouTube and find them, his YouTube account used to be, I haven't looked at it lately, but it used to be a massive mess because it was the same lecture series repeatedly, but not always posted in the right order and stuff like that. And the lectures would get refined and whatnot. So you never knew what year to look at that would be the best version of a lecture. And then they were remixed with other generic classes and whatnot. He does good stuff on film though. Okay, so back to the question. In maps, from what I picked up on him or from him, it seems as though that some of those Greek myths, getting away from Christ at this point, the Greek myths, like the harpies or whatnot, functioned like a psychology manual that they represented. And I'm trying to paraphrase him. What my impression of him and paraphrase him, they seem to represent what people commonly saw. And have you noticed this in your reading of various stories in Colombian or American or Brit or European? Do you see a reflection of just what people see in these older stories like Greek mythology that then can be used to educate us on this is how things generally run? I hope I articulated that, but that kind of undermines me trying to ask you about it because I was going to ask for help putting this into words.
So
Do you see that?
I think what you're driving at is that um, the same kinds of people doing the same sorts of things
Mhm.
uh, always comes about, regardless of the context and the time. Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, something like we have harpies. They were ladies in Greek mythology, but there are some women in and even some men who are like that, that they lure you in and destroy you. So be careful of what you're being lured in with. That these little,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Trojan horse, that one comes to mind immediately. That's an element from a myth that may or may not have really happened. But in any
mhm,
case, we can all think of 1,000 applications of the same principle of,
mhm,
um, obviously everyone knows the Trojan horse means when you deceive someone by giving them something that apparently on the exterior seems like something positive for them, but hidden within is something that will destroy them. That
mhm.
happens. That happens all the time. I think that's happening now. Not to get political, but yeah. And so those same elements are reproduced not just in real life, but definitely reproduced in modern fiction as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Sorry, I kind of overstated that for you while asking for help on how to state it, but the answer is yes. Just great. Cool. So I have a. Oh yeah. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just
Okay.
laughing.
All right. I have one more question though. It sounds like you. Okay. Well, we know that you mixed the. I forget what they're called. They're not settings. I think they're themes of man versus whatever. I'm sorry. We have a comment here. The definition of a harpy or succubus. There we go. Hi, Ian. Yeah, there we go. The definition of a harpy or succubus: she heals you with her bandages after she bleeds you dry. I don't think that fits the myth, but oh, there we go. Be careful with these people. That fits the myth. So, I also just read The Lost Pages by Phil, who was here earlier, Zaid Comics, and they've got a harpy story in there. So that's pretty cool.
Oh wow,
Anyway,
I'm a big fan of Zaid Comics. Phil's a really cool guy. I love those books.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
I've only read the first of the two books. So
yeah, he's awesome.
cool. Now earlier we talked about the settings, or not settings, but the man versus the two, mixing the two. Did you? It also sounds like you're mixing two different types of character arcs in here that go along with that. Were you focused when you were writing about using character arcs or other tools to use that besides the ones we've mentioned?
My focus was on making Rokan's personality believable and unique, and making his actions unpredictable for the reader.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
my main objective. And like we've talked about before, the symbolism happens. The hero's journey happens. You can't avoid it. You just have to decide. You just have to be very deliberate about how you implement it.
Okay. And you as a writer view storytelling as Christocentric anyway, so that's something we can look for in there when we get the book and read it. So that'll be
Yes.
cool. Nice. Yeah, I wanted to try like to not just focus on like shill the book, but we have talked about the book a lot. So it's been really cool to get to know you. I do want to look at the campaign, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. Let's look over the campaign. I think that's a perfect way to end.
Cool. I just want to make sure you don't have anything on your mind that you've been chomping to say but didn't get to say. That's all.
No, I
So
think we covered everything, and in precisely the amount of time that we had wanted.
yeah. Now let's see. This is you got 13 backers. It's great. You've been open for less than a day. I think less than 24 hours.
Not bad.
Now there was a question earlier that Mo had, and then he had to answer the phone. I think where it's about the U.S. shipping. Now I'm not logged in here on this browser. So
Oh yeah, I will run my fulfillment from the United States. So, we'll do medium mail, which is like $2 or something. So, I just include the shipping in the cost of the product. So, in other words, free shipping to the United States.
okay, and are you getting help with somebody in the United States to dish these? You don't have to say whom, but are
Yeah,
you
it'll be me. I'll do it.
okay?
I will be in the United States for that period of time when I'm fulfilling this project.
Okay, cool. And then I noticed a lot of these tiers and perks and whatnot are really cool. Yeah, I don't know if it's the computer I'm on in the other browser, but no, what are you doing jumping around? Okay, there we go. Here's Preston's cover, which is really cool, and that was visible down. There's the full version of it. Did
Yeah,
he actually paint this on a textured material, or
it sure
is
looks
that
that way, doesn't it?
yeah? Now he does work traditionally because he gets too into the details if he goes digital. So
I
um,
think he's from what he's said to me, it seems he's getting more into traditional painting. I think Max has something to do with that, to be honest, because the two of them have a pretty similar style in a lot of ways. So
mhm.
I think lately both of them are really really into traditional painting.
Cool. And now we can see here you've got it's well, we can't see the A, it's kind of cut off, but this is because within this perk you pick one So A, B, C, D like that. And he's trying to give us a legend here so we can tell what print is what. These are pictured over here on the right, but then it's, there, but D we don't have on the campaign yet for some reason. That's still under construction. We see the yellow tape.
Yeah, you can see the black and white. It's just not complete yet. The image, so that's why
So
it's
here's
not painted yet.
here's the group image we were looking at before. Is this that's not the regular cover, is it?
Yes, it is.
That's the regular cover. And then this one with the word Rokan on it, that is just a pinup?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to clarify this. So the prints, the A4 size prints, I'm offering 4 options for those, which are the 2 covers and 2 pinups. So,
we have
you can
cover.
choose. Yeah, so that's a cover, and if you scroll down to the press, so there's the Preston cover, and then the regular cover. So
And
if you order print, you can get either of those, or you can get the pinup, which is that one, or the Skull Crush pinup, which will be an update when it's finished.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So this is is the turtle? I thought the turtle was a poster. Is that a full splash page?
That is a full splash page. That's a turtle, and there are 1,000 ants there as well. The turtle and the ants represent the 2 gods. If you look at my avatar, it might be too small, but my avatar is a yin yang with a turtle and an ant. So the turtle represents the younger brother god that I talked about briefly, and the ant represents the younger brother god, which is the patron of manual laborers and warriors and athletes, and the turtle represents the older brother god, which is the patron of clerics, wizards, and scientists.
Okay, cool. Nice. And let's see if we can get back to what I'm sure. Yeah, we can. Okay. There's a few mechanics in StreamYards that I still haven't practiced with, like switching like that without stopping a share. So, okay. But we've got a few perks down here. Now, this perk at the bottom, it says everything, and you've got this one fixed up. It's because I noticed this one was more popular before you fixed it. He had to repair his perk, and that's why it says 0, but really other people have already gotten this. That one's just hidden now.
Yeah,
they're going to get their stuff.
I think 6 people got the other version. Yeah.
Cool. So this
Luckily,
is both. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. Luckily, everyone that ordered that perk before I fixed it is someone that I know personally, so they're not going to complain. But now it's the description's a little bit more accurate.
Cool. And I kind of want to push this one because it's nice, and I'll say it's basically both covers and 1 print all signed. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just to say one more thing on that about 2 books and whatnot. Among comic skaters, it's the gold standard of having this what do you call it, a Gemini mailer. And let's see. Yep, the turtle and the ant, a tale as old as time itself. Thank you, Mo. The thing about the Gemini mailers is that my experience has been more of those have been damaged than anything I get in a flat, and I don't mean manila envelope like just paper, but a flat cardboard, what they call a photo mailer. So I don't know how you're planning on fulfilling. Don't commit yourself to anything right now on this stream, but everybody disses the flat photo mailers, even though some very big names have used them, and they just sort of ignore that fact. And the flat photo mailers with a single or 2 floppies, which is what we're getting here, those go in with the flat mail, like the letters, not with the packages. The Geminis end up with the packages, and I've had many Gemini mailers damaged, including the contents, because they're heavier, they're in with the packages, etc., rather than the photo mailers, which are in with the flat mail, and it comes in a little more organized and safe. Just so people know that. So if you end up using the photo mailers, I just don't want people resenting you. Either way you go, I've got your back. Okay. Ready?
Yeah, that's something I'll talk over with my team before making a final decision about that. I wasn't aware. That makes a lot of sense about the Geminis going in with larger packages, that's an aspect that I hadn't considered. So we'll see.
Cool. So yeah, you might want to go back to your campaign and figure out, because I don't know the back end of Indiegogo well enough, how to make this one the featured perk, as it's called, so that it ends up way up here at the top.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out either because I saw. Well, I won't get into the weeds with that. Nobody cares. But yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out with us. If Hey, I'm stammering. Anyway, if people want to look over the perks, it's 15 for the Preston Acevedo cover, 10 for the non Preston Acevedo cover for the mushroom head. What's his name? Max Mushroom. Max Headshroom.
Max
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, for his cover. There are prints available. This is a little extra support we can give these guys. And I really don't do variant covers much anymore unless it's a campaign like this where you're newer, you're smaller, and where you're just getting started. The problem is if everybody lived like me, then the world would end, because I do weird things like, yeah, I'll buy both copies now, but then on your next campaign I might not. And so if everybody did that, like suddenly you'd have the same number of backers but half as much revenue. It'd be terrible. So, anyway, I appreciate you giving us your time. Good info on the photo. Where's my mouse? On the photo mailer blue?
Max is here.
He's
You
here.
made it, Max.
Hey,
Yeah,
we're just ending.
The greatest artist in the world. We definitely weren't talking smack about you, Max. Everything we said about you was good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you don't mind me taking a minute before you get your break, and then in an hour you're going to go to the other one. It's okay. It's okay, Max. We're good. We forgive you we forgive you for not sending the link to you. There we go. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, so there's a phenomenon here that's very specific to me, I'll point out, and that is where shadow and not a black object has the lighting on it. And so you get a haze of the coloring, and instead of like a color hold where the line work that's not shadow, but just a line work is given a color, but this is now a shadow, so it's not an object, but it has a haze of color over it. That never looks right to me. And the reason is, growing up in our living room, we had a lamp that shined in your eyes no matter where you were. But it kind of works in this image because the sun is shining in our eyes no matter where we are. So I get that same feeling of summertime in that living room from seeing the blacks here. And it's just me. And you can really see it down here in this one. So it's just me. That's my one thing where I'm just like, oh, it's hard to look at. Well, yeah, the sun is in your eyes. Of course it's hard to look at. But no,
yeah, I think it's meant to be hard to look at, and that gives it a really dynamic feel. So yeah, I can understand why that's annoying to you, but I think it's phenomenal, and it seems to me to be deliberate as well.
Yeah, and it's a good effect, because let's look at the next page. It's not the same at all. It's totally different.
Yeah.
So definitely for effect, and it's effective for somebody who grew up with light shining in his eyes. It's effective. So, now, Max, the other thing I wanted to say that I really liked about your artwork, I don't know if this means anything to you, but my older brother was into a bit of progressive rock like Yes and Asia, and you reminded me of their album covers. Just wanted to put that out there. So the old album covers, not the ones. So okay, all done?
Yeah, I think we're set. Blue, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun, and probably going to help us out a lot.
I hope so. No problem. Let's see if I do this correctly. We can get rid of that. There we go. And then I can say thanks for being here and giving me your time, especially. Yeah, have a good evening. We'll see you guys later.
Yeah, you too. We'll stay in touch.
In collaboration with Tier 1 Comics, an all-new creative team brings the epic fantasy adventure of Rokan to life, combining high fantasy and heavy metal artistic styles and sensibilities with the action-packed, fun world of superhero comic books. Rokan is part fantasy, part superhero, and all metal.